welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before, or welcome back if you watch my videos, and I thank you very, very much. I love to upcycle clothes and turn ordinary thrift store finds into beautiful pieces. And today we're working on this duster. It's a black lace duster that I made from 4 black lace dresses that I thrifted, and it's very easy to make. And if you keep in mind, if you want a white one, and white lace dusters are very beautiful and almost look like resort wear or beach cover-ups, do the same thing I'm doing, only pick up a couple white lace dresses. Now the black is more abundant in the thrift stores that I shop at, but I always see white lace dresses here and there, and you could fill in with like a vintage white tablecloth and, do the ruffles and fringe with maybe some white lace curtains. So, just use your imagination and have fun with it. I am posting 4 tutorials at the same time, and one is going to be on this duster. One will be on these awesome black fringy bell-bottom pants. And this is a tunic tank top, long and flowy with some velvet flowers. And I have this hat, and I'm posting all those tutorials, and I'm going to link all of them in my description below. And if you want to see how they're all made or want this whole outfit, check them out. So let's get started. I have a total of 5 lace dresses, and one is gray. And that includes the one on the mannequin. At this point, I don't know how much of this I'll use, but I'll let you know. And I'm going to start with this one because I want long sleeves, and this gives me a good start. And the back will actually be the front. This will be what I cut open because it has a button at the top. And I'll just take advantage of that and just have a closure already made for the top of my duster. So this has lining, and normally I would just cut the lining out, but in this case it will show through the cut part, so I'm going to have to seam rip the lining out. So as it turns out, I have to cut this out because as I was seam ripping, I was starting to sort of damage the lace of the dress. So I'll just improvise, and if that shows through, I will just cover it up with something. Okay, so I got the lining removed, and now I am just going to cut it right up the center to that little keyhole here. Okay, it's all cut open, and I just have that little button holding it closed at the top. So I have this on, and I just have that little button at the top. The first thing I'm going to do is work on the sleeves, and this is nice and stretchy, so it's comfortable on the upper arm. It looks fitted, but it's very comfortable. But I want it to be above the elbow, this fitted part, and then I just want to put a big sleeve on it. So to make this above the elbow, I measured, I have to cut off 4 inches of the sleeve. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to take it off and cut off 4 inches from the bottom of the sleeves. So to cut the sleeves, I'm just folding it over, lining up the sleeves. I'll just do a little measurement here to make sure I'm going 4 inches, and I'll just cut it straight across. Now I want to make the rest of the sleeve, and I got my yardstick, and I want to see how long I want it. I like my big sleeves to come down on my hand a little bit, covering like the top part of my hand. So that means I want mine to be about 12 inches, 12 and a half inches. I'll say 12 and a half inches, and then I will cut 13. because that will give me room for seam allowance. So I'll just keep that number in my head as I start to create the bottom of the sleeve. And I am going to make the bottom of my sleeve with this dress. And I chose this because it's pretty voluminous, it's pretty full, and I want a big full sleeve. And so this is lined too, and I'll just ignore that. I am just going to cut this skirt part off. It's connected here at the bodice. So I'll just cut that off to give me the lace fabric for the bottom of my sleeve. Okay, so this is what the bottom of the dress looks like, all cut open without the lining. And now I want to cut this in half. And I could fold it over and cut it like that. That'll show me where half is, but this one has a seam right down the middle, which is nice because I know that's exactly the middle, and I'll just cut that seam. Okay, so now I have my two pieces, one here and one here. And on each one of them, I decided that 13-inch sleeve length, remember? And so now I want to mark, I'm going to use a piece of chalk because it shows up nice on this black lace. And I'll just put the 13 inches down at the bottom of my sleeve. And I'll just mark here and there 13 inches all along. Because it's curved, we can't make a straight line. So we have to kind of measure all along here. And I'll make my marks all the way to the end. Now I have it completely marked, and I will just cut along that line. So now I have both of these cut to 13 inches, and I'm going to fold it in half, and I want all my seams and stuff on the outside of this duster. Most projects I do that because I think messy seams sort of add a fun detail. You can have the seams on the inside if you want. See, there's a hem here. I want it on the outside. There's a seam here. I want it on the outside. So I'll fold this in half, and I'll do this to both sleeves here. Just kind of line that up, go to my machine, and start stitching from the top all the way down to the bottom. And I'll use black thread and a zigzag stitch, which I usually use when I'm working with lace. And I'll do that to both sleeves. And I don't pin this or anything. It's just a pretty simple stitch. I just line it up at the top, put it under my presser foot, and go. And I just kind of line it up as I move down the sleeve. Okay, so now we have two half sleeves that look like this. Looks like a little skirt. And now I want to attach these to the bottom of the sleeve. Okay, so now we want to attach that sleeve that we made. And I turned my duster inside out, and I'm going to be working on this side. And this is my sleeve, and this is the bottom. It's more narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. So I want to slip this up over the sleeve, and I want the bottom to go up first. And I want wrong sides together, which means this is inside out. And the side I want to show is facing me right now. The side I don't want to show is the wrong side, so it will be facing the sleeve. And I will slip it over that sleeve. And then this will take a lot of pleating because this is a lot wider than the narrow sleeve. So I will find a seam and line it up with the seam from the sleeve. This is black, it's really hard to see, but this is the sleeve that's attached. And I found a seam, and I'm just going to stick a pin in that. And I'll put it on the outside because that's how it will go into the machine I can pluck it out as I go. And now I'll find the opposite side. These don't really have any seams over here. So basically I'm just taking this wide piece and finding the center over here. And then I will pin it to the opposite side of that sleeve. And basically this is just putting this on, pinning this on so that you don't really want to guess as you're sewing this one like we do a lot of times on some projects and pleat as you go, because you may end up at the very end with this gob of fabric and giant pleats. I am just trying to distribute the pleats evenly. So I'll find the center of what is the sleeve here on the duster, and then again find the center of the piece we're adding, and I'll pin that. And I'll just keep going around and doing that until my pieces get smaller and smaller. Like I have this little chunk here from the sleeve. I'll find the center of that large piece and pin that. Basically, you just want it evenly distributed all the way around. So I'll get both those pinned on. Okay, so I have both sleeves pinned. And there's an opening here still. And that's what will go into the machine. And I take this front plate off to make it more narrow to fit the sleeve into. And then I just open that up, and mine's nice and stretchy. Thank goodness, otherwise it might not fit over this little arm here. So I'm just going to slide it over the arm and under my presser foot. And I will probably, I'll use as small of a seam allowance as I can, but I want to make sure all these lacy pieces get in to the needle. So I'll probably go bigger than 1/4 inch. I may go closer to 1/2 inch just to make sure everything gets sewn. And I have it on a zigzag stitch. Just go forward and backward to lock it in. And I will just sew over those little pleats as I go and pull pins out. And I'll just do that all the way around. Okay, so here's what the sleeves look like. Okay, so now I want to make sort of a tattered ruffled bottom. And I'll show you how I do that. Okay, now I'm working on the bottom of the duster, and these are the 2 remnants that we cut when we were making the sleeves, and they're about 8 inches wide and 24 inches long. So I just want to use those as sort of my guide. And I'm pulling out another lace dress. This is dress number 3. Okay, so I'm just going to take that piece I was talking about and just lay it on top of there. I won't do any measuring. That'll just give me a good idea of how wide I want to cut these. I just want some more pieces that size. And then I'll just take that piece and lay it on again. I just want to get some 8-inch wide strips going here. Okay, I have about 9 pieces cut here, and some pieces didn't allow me to go 24 inches, so they range from about 15 inches wide or long to about 24. And that'll just give us different heights in the hemline, the ruffle. That'll be cute. So I'll show you what I do next. Okay, so this is the bottom of my duster. I have it right side up because I'm going to sew on the outside of it. And normally, if you've watched any of my videos, we've done ruffles before. And when I sew them on, I start at one corner and then I just sort of pleat it as we go and sew over top. But this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a little more tattered looking. So I'm going to my very end here, and I'll start here. But what I'll do is I'll only sew, and I won't do any pleating. I'll just sew about 6 inches of this in the middle onto the bottom of the duster. So if you look what happens when, say this is sewn from here to here, see you get that kind of wispy looking tattered kind of triangles at the bottom. So what I'll do is, and I'll just eyeball this. I mean, I wouldn't measure 6 inches in the center because I just basically want a chunk in the middle sewn to the bottom of the duster. Go up a little higher. Isn't that cute? And I'm not sewing these ends. I'm only sewing the 6 inches in the middle and just straight across, no pleating. And then, you know, I have that whole pile that we cut. I'll go to my next piece. Well, this one's a little shorter, and maybe I won't quite, black is so hard to see, and maybe I won't quite do 6 inches. Maybe I'll do 5 since this one's so short. And I'll sew in the middle here, from like here to here. Now I'll lay this, the part I'm going to sew, right next to the other piece that we sewed on. Now I'm pretending I'm at my machine because I won't pin any of this on. You can if you want. I'll just start at one end, you know, and zigzag stitch. And as I sew, I'll add another one. And so the next one, let's see, is a larger one. I'll go about 6 inches in the center and sew that right next to that. Now see what a cute kind of jagged edge we're getting here? And it's even cuter when it's upright because it kind of flows and has great movement. So I'm going to go to my machine and I'll start at one end and just keep laying the centers on all the way along. Okay, I'm at my machine. I'm putting my front plate back on. And this is the bottom of the duster. And I'm just starting at one corner here. This is the very bottom. I have my machine set on a zigzag. Let me throw my dress up here, or duster. Okay, and then I'm taking one piece, and I'm not starting at the end. I'm starting in this one about 6 inches, and I'll set that underneath my presser foot. Do a zigzag forward and back to lock that in. And then I'll just zigzag stitch. About 6 inches there. And then, so we've got this part that's not sewn. I'm just going to tuck that out of the way. Grab my next piece. Start in the middle here. Lay that under my presser foot. Give it a little stitch. And zigzag stitch the middle of this piece. And I'll do that all along the bottom. Okay, so here's what it looks like with the ruffles at the bottom. Looking cute, right? Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add some ties right here. I tried it on and I want the ties just a little bit below my chest. I just feel like that was a flattering look when I tried mine on, where I would want another closure. I probably wouldn't use that top button too much, but I'm going to leave it just in case. So I measured on me, and this is, I put pins where I want the ties, and they are 9.5 inches down from the top. And so the ties that I'm going to use, I have one more dress left, and it actually has ties around the neckline, which is kind of a score because I'll just cut those off and use those. And I'll tie one, or I'll sew one side. I'll sew it with the ribbon facing the center here, and I'll just go to the very edge and I'll just zigzag stitch over that a few times. And then I'll go to the opposite side with the other ribbon, put it right where that pin is, and zigzag stitch over it a few times. Okay, so here's my tie. I still have this buttoned because my mannequin is so narrow at the shoulders. I don't want it to fall off of her. And I will eventually do a fringy sort of neckline and down the front. But before I do that, I feel the back is sort of plain. So I'm going to create sort of a corset string tie in the back. And this will be, you could use ribbon, black satin ribbon, or any color you want. I don't really have any black satin ribbon. I looked, but I do have this really narrow sort of gimp trim. It's black and gold and white. So I will use that for my crisscross strings going down the back. But first I need to create something to lace this through. And I'll show you what I do for that. Okay, so I have one more black dress left, and lace is beautiful because it has these natural holes, and I'll take advantage of that to lace my ribbon or gimp through. And so I just need to cut a couple strips off the bottom of this dress. First, I'll cut the hem off because I won't need that, and then I'll show you what I do. Okay, I have my hem cut off, and now I'm going to cut a strip off the bottom 1.25 inches wide. And so I'll just cut up a seam a little bit here. And I don't mark this. I just always sort of lay my ruler down and move it and just sort of go to that 1.25 inch mark. Now this, I eyeball a lot of stuff, but I want this to be a little more precise. So I am going to measure it all the way around. And so I'll just keep cutting all the way around the dress until I have that strip cut off. Okay, once I have that bottom piece cut off, I just cut 2 strips that are 17 inches long. Okay, so I have my 2 strips cut, and now I want to sew them on to the back of the duster. And so what I will do here is find the center of this neckline and mark it with a piece of chalk. I just eyeballed mine, but you can go to these seams and take a tape measure and find the exact center if you want to. And so from this center chalk mark, I measured over 3.25 inches and made a chalk mark. And then over here went 3.25 inches and made a chalk mark. Now I will I'll start with one strip at a time, and I will lay the very center of this right on that chalk mark, and I will pin it. And then I'll take the other one in the very center, I'll lay on that chalk mark and pin that. And now I want to pin the rest of these down the back. And this is if you have it on a hanger or a mannequin, it's easier because it has a natural vertical line here, just from gravity. So I won't have to do a lot of measuring and things like that. So I will just continue pinning those strips all the way down on both sides. And when you pin lace, if you weave instead of just sticking your pin in like we normally do, if you kind of weave it in a couple times, it holds better. All right, I'll get those pinned. So I have both sides pinned, and now I want to sew it. And I want to be able to lace this. So I want these holes available that are in the center here. So what I will do is I'll still be using a zigzag stitch. I'll go across the top of that strip completely, and then I'll go down the right side. We'll say for this one, it would be the outside. Go down the outside and then stitch across the bottom also. And then same with this one, zigzag stitch, go across the top, down the outside, and stitch along the bottom. Okay, so I have my strips sewn on, but I'm not going to lace it up yet because there's more I want to do and I don't want to fight that lace. So I'll do that last. But what I want to do now, let me slide her out a little bit, is create that fringy neckline. That fringy neckline and fringy front. Okay, and so to create sort of the fringy look that I want, I'm going back to that dress where I just cut those strips off the bottom, and I will use this for my fringe. And I am going to cut pieces that are approximately, because we do not want this to be perfect or it won't look right. So you just want to cut this messy and approximate. So these are approximately 1 foot long and 1.5 inches wide. And I am going to deconstruct this dress because it has lining. I don't need that. I'll be able to use the arms on this. And so I just want to cut this all apart so that I just have some lace fabric basically to work with. Now I have the dress all deconstructed and ready to cut. And I have to give my little Pink Power electric scissors another little plug because I tell you what, repetitive cutting like fringe and things like that, or heavy duty cutting like denim or leather, has taken its toll on my wrist. I have severe tendonitis. I get cortisone shots and probably will have surgery sometime soon. But these just really saved my wrist. And they will cut like leather, denim, and even like fine lace. So I'm going to put a link to this in my description. This would take me forever without these scissors. Okay, I'll probably cut most of this up because I want it really full, the fringe and stuff, and then I'll come back and show you what I do. Okay, so I have a pretty good pile of fringe here, and I even have extra in case I find that this isn't enough. And now I need to sew these on, and I will actually start at the bottom and make my way up and around and down the other side. But I'm going to show you up here how I'm sewing it just so you can see better. Let me scooch this up. Okay, so remember how we sewed that ruffle at the bottom where we only sewed like 5-6 inches in the center? Where we are kind of doing the same thing with this, only we're doing about 1.5 inches in the center. So these will dangle, and then like 1.5 inches in the center will be sewn. So like I said, I'm starting at the bottom just above the ruffle, but I'll show you up here when the neckline, I will just sort of find my center and I'll lay it at that corner. I don't want to disturb that button. And I will sew over top of it about 1.5 inches, approximately in the center, because it's actually cuter when some are a little longer and some are a little shorter. So don't try to be perfect with this. And then where that one is stopped, I'll add the center of the next one and sew another approximately 1.5 inches. You can eyeball yours at, maybe your fringe is thinner, thicker, just however you like it. And then I'll do that all the way around the neckline like that. But when I come up the side or down the side, I'll do the same thing with the 1.5 inches and, like we did up here, except I will go along this edge and I want my fringes to be facing towards the outside. I won't sew it like this, but maybe you want your sewn like that. You know, it's just personal preference and art, but I always sew mine to the outside. And then I'll add my next piece. And I'll just keep going along like that until it's all finished. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. And now we just have to lace up the back and we'll be done. Okay, so like I said, I'm using that GIMP trim. And you can use ribbon if you want. Mine, I had to put a tiny little piece of tape at the bottom because this phrase at the end, that just helps me get it through the little holes. But if you have a ribbon, just cut a point onto it. And so I tucked my little fringes out of the way and I went underneath one side with one end of the, I'm going to call it lace, and then the opposite side with the other end. And then I just made sure they lined up, you know, just like a shoestring. And then I'll just take this end and crisscross it, find another hole, pull it through, take the other end, do the same thing, and I'll just keep doing that till I get to the bottom or close to the bottom. Okay, so I have that all laced up, and I'm just going to tie the remaining either in like a double knot or a bow, whatever you prefer. So cute.